How did people react when you started coming out publicly, like with these concerns in the House?
From the Sask party MLAs, they just avoided me. There were also individuals that were intimidating me. There was others that would come harass my staff. The government caucus chief of staff came down and attacked my staff.
Thanks for agreeing to sit down with us and chat a little bit about politics. And we, of course, sat on either side of the aisle for a number of years. Me first being elected in 2016, you in 1999, I think.
1999, yes.
And so you served in the legislature in Saskatchewan for 25 years?
25 years, yeah. First 2 terms were in opposition and then since then in government. Of course, the last 4 years I served as Speaker. Been an interesting career.
It has been. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I want to talk about. One of the things, up until the last election, you were one of, even at that time, one of the few members who knew what it was like to be on the other side of the aisle. And I know this is a conversation that you and I have had. I've had with other people. I think now in the legislature, we've only got one member who's ever been in opposition, who's in government side, and no one in the opposition side that's ever been in government. Do you think that can contribute to the acrimony, I guess, or does it give you a different perspective as a government member when you have served in opposition as opposed to those who are elected right into government?
Oh, absolutely. During the 2 terms that I was in opposition, I remember the speaker of the day or speakers of the day had certain standards about letting members speak a bit not off the record, but off topic. And looking back, that we in opposition had a lot of latitude to speak off topic. And when I became Speaker, I certainly look back on those days to allow members to speak a bit off the topic, because I know I did lots when I was standing up and speaking. So you talk about all sorts of things that maybe weren't pertaining to the bill or to the budget as much as some of the leadership nowadays wanted. They definitely had a different attitude. They wanted the Speaker to shut the opposition down, and that's not how our system works.
So you took that experience being in opposition and that latitude, and you applied that when you became Speaker. You were first elected as Speaker and now I was there, I should remember the year.
21, right in the middle of the pandemic as well. So
that's
we all
right.
had to experience that. Yes.
Yeah. I remember the photograph, the composite photograph that we had. We lived through, all of us who were members at that time during the pandemic. Extraordinary time, a lot of measures, sort of building the plane as we flew it, and certainly as Speaker of the House, you would have had a lot of writing the playbook through that. Maybe just talk about that period and what that was like.
Oh, well, certainly. When I was elected Speaker, there were 6 of us ran, and I won on the 5th ballot, so it's an interesting, it wasn't necessarily an overwhelming win, but it was the win. And that's something that our legislature had is electing speakers and more than one person running, and even members from the opposition would run for Speaker. I know Danielle Chartier ran for Speaker. And I'm disappointed that this last Speaker, it was uncontested. Technically, it's still an election, but if the government of the day or the Premier doesn't allow any of its other members to run, it's by acclamation, really. So I'm disappointed because we had quite a history of speakers running and different members winning and becoming speakers. So that first election, yes, we were all seated in single rows, plexiglass, masks on, and we had the election and the whole ceremony. There was no opposition leader and Premier taking the Speaker up. I missed all that.
That's right.
Because I spoke to both sides, and then we carried on through those days. So when you talked about the composite, that was one of the first things that I thought should be done. This is a historic photo.
It really was.
and there wasn't overwhelmingly liked by the premier and the government, but they I'm glad I got on it early while there was still a little goodwill. And if you recall, only 50% of the members were in the House at the same time, so they're in the picture. There's two sets of members, and I always say whenever I show the photo to anybody that up in the opposition, Nicole Sarr had her baby, and then the other group, Elena Young, had her baby. So he has two babies in the chambers for those photos.
That's been another change, and I know you were supportive of some of those changes, and I think we're up to now expecting the sixth baby born while we've been in opposition. You know, there are a lot of changes. Actually, I was elected the election before the pandemic, 2016. A lot of changes, I think, across not only in the legislature, but I think, maybe I'll see if you agree with me, coming out of that pandemic, there's a lot that sort of shifted. I don't just mean inside the House, a lot of polarization, a lot of people talking about, difficult discussions, being hard to go to Thanksgiving or go to Christmas and talk about politics, let alone things like vaccinations or a whole bunch of other things. What do you see the difference or some of what you saw sort of pre-2020 and post?
Well, I think with COVID, it brought out some real negative features in people, and just not in Saskatchewan, across the world, quite frankly. Yeah. The conspiracy theorists really have come out, and it persists to this day. There's people that are, and the internet, the algorithms, the whole situation. There's people that I know now, let alone back during the pandemic, that are you just shake your head at where they get their information and their distrust in the media, mainstream media. Many of them use that as a negative view. I use that as a positive thing. Yes, you turn the TV on, listen to one of our three stations, because you can still trust them, but a lot of people don't trust them, and they'd rather be looking on the internet to something that comes out of the wild blue yonder, and they believe this stuff, eh? Yeah. So it just speaks to the outrageous information that's out there and what people believe and don't believe. Yeah. It's all changed, and it persists to this day. Yeah. And I think it's affected our politics as well, not just in the United States, but around the world, in Canada and in Saskatchewan. Yeah,
we've seen it here. I mean, I talk a lot with people, and I certainly see it myself, increasing divisiveness, or it's not even divisiveness. There's always been differences of opinions. That's why we have different political parties, but increasing polarization and inability to discuss hard things, even in a way that's civil. I don't even mean not heated. The media, we've discussed a little bit. The media landscape is different. There are fewer reporters, fewer eyes on what we're doing, certainly introduction of social media. What other changes have you seen, good or bad, over that 25-year span in politics? I think the total disrespect of the institution of democracy in general, and the disrespect during my time as Speaker to the Sergeant at Arms, security, those LAS. I mean, a total disrespect and distrust of them. And you go back a number of years when I've looked into this, there'd be deputy ministers would go from one government to another. Right, those professional civil servants. CCF, Tommy Douglas period. Many deputy ministers stayed on during the Thatcher years, and well, can you say that? Did they go into, the Blakeney years, naturally? And I'm not so much in the Devine days, and since then it's very rare, actually, these deputy ministers stay once the government changes from one party to another. And I think that's a problem. And you see that federally as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's and you've got such a unique perspective on this, because being both in opposition and in government, being a minister and a caucus chair whip, but also as speaker. And I think this is something that, I think your average citizen doesn't really think a lot about, although maybe I've got that wrong, the different branches of government. Often, I don't know if you find this, but when people know that you're in politics, their only vision of it often is question period, right?
Yes, so
but there's the legislative branch and the judicial branch, and then the executive branch and LAS. Maybe talk about that part and how important the institution is and why. And I know we've spoken about this before, and we can maybe get into the foundation a little bit later. Why is that important for? Why should the average person in Saskatchewan care about that?
Well, absolutely. It's for the health of the democracy. It's so important because that's right. We got 61 members now. I've said this many times, both in opposition and in government. Look at this: the 61 members. Yes, they're government, they're opposition, they're ministers. Yes, they need to be held accountable. But at the end of the day, it's the civil service that is actually carrying out the wishes of the government.
Yeah.
And you need a strong civil service. You need all those, right, and including the clerk and all the staff in LAS. You need them to be very, very accountable and trained and experienced because they need to advise the government on many things, especially a new government when a party changes in government. So it's absolutely essential that continues but improves, quite frankly.
It's a unique role, right? I can only imagine. So you are elected within a political party, and then you put your name forward to be the speaker and take an oath of impartiality. And that's sort of do I have that right? You do?
Actually, it's not an oath.
Okay.
I checked into
that. No,
I
I saw your face, so
yes.
I knew that wasn't the right term.
So we all, as members, we take an oath.
We all take an oath,
one.
yeah.
So it's more of a declaration.
Okay.
Actually, is what the speaker takes, but it's a fine point.
Yeah.
But you're right. The declarations that I took and the speakers take is a declaration of impartiality.
Yeah.
And that soon got lost in the weeds with me right away when it's obviously the government of the day couldn't care about impartiality. They wanted me to do their bidding.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So you go back in the British parliamentary system a long ways. There was an odd speaker that got beheaded, and that's why...
That's why you have to drag them in.
That's why you have to drag them in, because it was a dangerous job.
Right.
And so you laugh about it. But no, there's issues around that when, almost most speakers come from the governing party.
Right.
And there's friction there, almost in every case. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's probably always been the case. You're elected into a party. You have to make rulings based on the rules. And probably it's kind of like a referee. If both sides are a little bit unhappy, you've done your job. It probably can make it difficult to go to, like the Christmas parties and things like that, some tension. But then, you came in a unique time, this polarized atmosphere sort of during the pandemic, and also, I guess, some media changes, social media, but also technological changes. And I know there were some things that came to light at the end of your term as speaker, revelation that you were receiving some text messages. I guess I'm just, already a difficult job, going back to the very beginning of our system, made worse by a number of factors. I wonder if you wanted to just talk about some of that.
I'll go back to, as a speaker, every speaker needs to know the rules, but a speaker relies on the clerk and his staff.
Incredibly important.
To points of order, to do the research. Naturally, do my own research as well, but do the research and look at precedents from not only Saskatchewan's history, but the House of Commons, and ultimately back to the Parliament in Westminster, And so when there's issues with rulings or points of order, at least in my time, I didn't make stuff up.
Right.
I mean, I relied on the staff, and I was told by a government member I should be telling the clerk's staff what to do, not the other way around. Well, that wasn't, I mean, whenever we met, which was every day, and there was a point of order, it wasn't, they would write it up or write up different options, and we discussed it, and they would lay out that there's precedents, you know, to substantiate the decision. Ultimately, it was my decision to make. They were recommendations to me.
Yeah.
But moving on to text messages and the intimidation, absolutely, that's all new. So absolutely, the intimidation that I made public from text messages, well, I made them public. I didn't have any problem about that. And the physical intimidation on two instances. You know, go really? You know, I mean, I don't think so. If that's not how people should behave.
I suspect folks who are listening to this probably have, you know, seen that speech that you stood up and delivered with receipts. I mean, you had the text there. One of the things that maybe predictably, when you stood up and you knew because you had lost a nomination, we can talk about that, what the defense or what the retort was of the government was, you know, sour grapes or something like that. Maybe, you know, a chance to explain, I think I understand it, but why you held on to those or why you waited until the end to talk about those, because I think there's probably a lot of things that you could reasons that you might want to put forward.
Absolutely, I have no problem talking about it. So as my time as speaker, I became more and more distant from the government. So there was a boundary changes right across the whole system.
Yeah.
And it was going to be difficult. So I said, well, this is part of the process, so be it. I mean, and so I ran for the nomination, and that MLA quit politics. And I remember him saying, I'll never be able to beat the speaker in a nomination. And but out of that came another man, the current MLA, that ran and won the nomination. Yeah, it was fair and square, and I was defeated, and that's the way it is. So out of that came, I had people that were supporting me in the nomination process, and they were told not to help me. Okay, so which is interesting. I mean, I knew what was going on, but I forged ahead anyway. So after the nomination was over, those last few months, I'm still speaker. I wasn't going to run for the Sask party, and but the intimidation and the harassment continued, which is interesting. And out of that, so why I didn't do something earlier? Well, there's very good reasons, political reasons, some personal, but political reasons you don't do that, because you'd be, and it was getting back to me that I was, they were contemplating on a fairly regular basis removing me as speaker. So that, I wanted to remain speaker to the end of my term, and so they may not agree with that, but actually I was kind of holding back on many areas because I didn't want to be removed as speaker. And until the very end, when, it didn't matter. They couldn't, there wasn't time to remove me as speaker, and I was going to go out with a bang, if you like. And so that's really the circumstances what led to that. And there's threats and very real intimidation about that whole process. It's not only me, but other speakers have to endure, from their own party.
Do you think that you faced it ramped up? I mean, you've talked to other speakers on both sides of the aisle. Do you think that's something that's increased over time, the amount of pressure on the speaker to
Well, I think it probably ebbs and flows through the years, but the speakers meet twice a year, and I raised these concerns that I was going through. And after you got to know other speakers, some would say, you know, they're having their own problems too with their own government, eh? And others say no. But it's really a lack of respect for the institution of the speaker as well as the system.
Yeah.
And no, that was a big concern. But after talking to other speakers, I felt very confident in what I was doing was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
As far as rulings and many things, eh?
Yeah, that context, that understanding of the...
Yeah, and one of the examples, and it was the Alberta speaker at the time, and his own members would say to him, well, why aren't you reining in a member or points of order? And so we all agree part of the speaker's role is to allow debate, continue the debate. Right. So if you shut down every little infraction, whether it's real or imagined, well, it's going to take away from QP. And that's and that's not the right thing to do.
The opposition only gets 25 minutes.
That's right. That's right. And he would say to his members, why don't you stand up and make a point of order?
Right.
If you don't think it's right, stand up.
Yeah, typically that's what would happen afterwards.
Oh, yeah. And also I removed five members, one member twice, and all of them...
Only once for me.
And all of the members but one were opposition members.
Sometimes coming out of leadership races, I didn't run against an incumbent, so it's got to be difficult in a caucus when you've got different members who maybe are competing against each other. How does that settle out through caucus?
For the leader?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was not an elected member when Ellen Hermanson became leader. Then, of course, I was a member of the government when Brad Wall became leader, and he was uncontested. Right. And then I was active in the leadership contest where Scott Moe became leader. Yes. Yeah, and putting that all back together. I mean, things. You know, sometimes in parties people say like the internal battles, like the nominations and leadership races, are as contentious. It's easy to fight against the other team. It's harder to fight against yourself. So, yes. Was that your experience as well? Oh yes. Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. Me and a number of people that did not support Scott Moe, that we paid a price. It was obvious. Yeah, we were on the outs right along. Yes. Yeah. But on saying that, it didn't stop me from becoming speaker, but there's other factors in the election of speaker, and the opposition had something to do with that. Yeah, yeah. And it's not just Saskatchewan, but I think once a leader becomes the premier, there's a lot more levers of power, if you want to use that word. You know, people want to be in cabinet. I mean, if you get offside with the leader, there's a problem there. Yeah. And different positions. So there's more levers for the premier to have to keep discipline. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, one of the things that I hear a lot from people. You know, they're tired of the division. They're tired of, you know, the two sides of the house shouting at each other, and are often surprised to hear that there can be friendships across the aisle, or, you know, we can all go to a reception and no one throws food or anything at each other. I have observed that that's gone a bit tougher, even over the 9 years that I've been elected. Maybe what do you think is lost if you have members that can't reach across the aisle or have civilized discussions with each other? I mean, let's put question period aside, because that's sort of that's what most people see, but it's not the biggest part of the jobs. What do you think is lost when you have caucuses, different members who can't talk across party lines, or have relationships, or being able to even, you know, talk about their critic and ministry roles? Well, a couple of points on that. We were told both opposition and in government, that yes, you know, go talk to the other side about issues. Also said that, you know, you try to get information out of them.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah.
because remember, they're trying to get information out of you.
Yeah.
And so naturally, I mean, naturally, you're a different party, and one's government, one's not. So that would take place. But also, there's some going to be very good things, information that's given as far as constituent concerns.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
provincial concerns that aren't going to show up in question period or anyway, just to make things work better.
Yeah, just to
And
get a
there's
quicker
certainly-
fix.
Certainly nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Eh? But there, it was pretty rare to be allowed to do that. If you were seen talking to the opposition too much, they'd be questioning you. In most extreme case was Nadine Wilson. Of course, she was left or kicked out of the Sask Party caucus over vaccination status and those types of things.
Yeah.
They were, the Sask Party members were told, you don't even be seen talking to her in the hallway anywhere. You have nothing to do with her.
Interesting.
They go, really? And there was, and I'm one of them, as speaker, I was able to communicate with her and all members, opposition and government anytime, because that was the right place. You know, we could have those discussions, but there were members. I know it's one member said, I've been friends with her long before politics, and I'm not going to stop being friends with her now.
Right.
You know?
Well, and she was the provincial secretary right up until she was removed
right.
from caucus, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'd almost, we did have three parties in the House there for a while. It's been an interesting few years. Maybe just talk about how did you end up running? What was what brought you to that
Well, I've
decision?
been asked that many times, actually, you know, when you meet with school groups or community groups, they ask me, well, how did you get into politics? So they say, we never thought you'd ever get into politics. And, you know, it's funny, I felt like saying to many of them, let's see, you didn't know me, first of all.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as I was going to school, I had a keen interest in history and out of that, naturally, politics. And so I got involved actively in politics during the 80s with a former party and went to some conventions and kind of hung around with the local MLA and got on the association. Yeah. That's about the time Cindy and I got married and started having babies and the work, and I just couldn't keep it up. So I went away from politics. So actually in 1996, I said, I want to get back into, being around the political process. And I went to a executive meeting of the federal PC party, actually. And I went, and it was in someone's house, and there was like 5 of us there. And so anyway, and of course, and then I started hearing about the Saskatchewan party. And kind of on again, off again, how it was happening. And so, I in 1997, there was about a week into when the party was formed, there was an informational meeting in Rosetown. And it was during harvest. And first of all, I probably shouldn't have been at that meeting because of the work schedule. And I went to that meeting thinking that was going to be, 15 people. Yeah. So I went to Rosetown. It was a Legion Hall, and pretty soon I noticed there's cars parked all over.
Oh, wow.
And when I went there half an hour before the meeting started, I was standing room only. Anyway,
during harvest, no less.
During harvest.
Wow.
Yes. And long story short, before the night was out, I was on the steering committee to form an association. Then it was Rosetown Bigger. Right. And within a week or two, I forget how long, I was the first president of the Constituency Association. And so then out of that came the leadership race. And so obviously Alan Hermanson lived at Beechview in Rosetown Bigger. And so obviously he won, and he obviously was going to be the candidate. Yeah. And the party organizer at the time said, we've got a constituency called Red Bear Lake. He said, I got nothing going on out there, hardly any members. And so my reply to him, I says, where's Red Bear Lake? So as it turned out, I lived in Rosedown Bigger, 6 miles north of where I lived was beginning of the Red Bear Lake boundaries. I owned land in Red Bear Lake. I owned land in then Cutknife, Turtleford, I forget the name of it. And so anyway, I came home and said to Cindy, if I'm going to get involved with politics, it's now. I says, here's, everything is kind of falling together. I started organizing in Red Bear Lake. And as I got the nomination by acclamation in 1998 and ran in 1999 and got elected. So, like we were talking about, young families being in children, and you really have to work with your spouse in order to, one of them should be at home with the children. And obviously, once I got elected, I was away quite a bit. So, the progression of my children, which is the interesting story, is in the Constituents Association, we set up a youth group. Okay. Generally, parties only have it at the U of S and U of R. I had a youth group, and actually my kids and my CA at the time, we got our kids involved in a youth group and $5 membership, and so we signed our kids up. They're part of the youth group. But as the years progressed, my children, especially my two daughters, I remember saying to them, no, just stay with the Sask party. One more election. And finally, they said, that's it. We're done with the Sask party. I'm not buying a membership of the Sask party. And both the daughters ended up buying memberships in the NDP.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm not.
Again, I bought a membership in the NDP too.
Well, there's a bit more of a progression as we go across there. Yeah, you've had quite a progression or change over the years. I mean, obviously, probably neither of us, me as someone who found myself as leader in this last election, if you would have told me that, I probably wouldn't have believed that in high school. But also, if you would have told me I'd be standing there with two former speakers and a former deputy speaker and Brad Wall's former speechwriter, I think a lot of us were on a journey. So maybe talk a little bit about that, like how, and however you want to tell it. I think people would be interested. How did you end up there? Because it wasn't just like one night, even if your daughters are very, very persuasive and smart, that didn't turn on a dime. How did you find yourself going from, like you said, deep roots, going back to the 90s to standing out and speaking out in this last election?
Well, it's interesting. Through the years, I was always a moderate thinking person politically. So, you go back to the days when, running for the nomination, the Saskatchewan Party, some of the policies kind of, no political party has the answer. It's, the big tent is the saying. And in the Saskatchewan Party was a big tent, and then I'll say about the federal system too. The Reform Party and the problem, the breakaway from the Progressive Conservative Party. So all that, and so when I was looking for support, I went to the Reform people, and I have to admit that some of their policies kind of gave me the EGBGs or whatever the term is. But that's part of the process. So I was like always a moderate centrist person politically as well. But as so with the election of Brad Wall as leader, very much a centrist. Yes, center right, an odd thing. Center left, not many, but center. And I was very comfortable with the laws and the program that he had and the party followed very well. So that wasn't difficult to stay within the Brad Wall government.
Right.
With the election of Scott Moe, that whole thing changed dramatically, and you could see it happening all the way through how he treated his MLAs and how MLAs that didn't supported him were treated, and I was one of those, and also policies. The whole thing around COVID. I mean, to this day, I'm still cringe that when the premier said, if you don't, go get vaccinated for COVID, we're going to make your life uncomfortable in a threatening manner. And I go, whoa, like, where does that come from? I mean, absolutely not. And we all know the problems with COVID and the push on to get vaccinated, but you just cannot threaten people. It's through education and persuasion. And that was the attitude of him and the government at the time. And then ever since then, the whole pronoun law, notwithstanding clause, my goodness, really, And there's, like I've said many times, I said, I didn't leave the Sask Party. The Sask Party left me. This is not a party that I want to belong to with policies like that. When a leader has as much baggage as the current premier coming in, from his personal life, it, should raise some questions on people's minds. And to his credit, he elected the leader of the Saskatchewan party and got elected as premier, and so I just think that there's issues around that, Everybody makes mistakes, we get that, but
we certainly all do. How did people react when you started coming out publicly, like with these concerns in the House and subsequently? I mean, there's ripped up your card, and there was a number of things that you did. What were people's reactions to that?
Well, generally from the Sask Party MLAs, they just avoided me, but that there's still events in my office, receptions and things that they would come to.
Right.
But there are also individuals that were intimidating me verbally. I remember, I think you were at the table when it happened, actually. So you don't forget things like that. But that's there was a handful of MLAs that would come and talk to me that on a friendly basis. Right. There was others that would come and harass my staff, and not confront me.
Oh, okay.
Which was interesting. The government caucus chief of staff came down and attacked my staff. And there was 2 occasions where, okay, I'm going to take this to the premier, and that was one of them. And there was another situation in both cases that they were women staff members, and they didn't want me to do that.
Oh, okay.
And so, I still think to this day, well, depending, that I probably should have taken it to the premier, even with the caucus chief of staff, really, you come and start yelling at my staff.
To go.
If it's on me, it's on me. It's not them.
What about outside of politics, outside of the building and stuff?
Oh, the building. It's incredible, but generally well received. I have. And most of them are still friends to this day that have deep roots in the Sask Party as members in the area. And I was a little concerned about my reception with those people, and very well received. Yes. No.
I've heard that a lot, and I think I've observed across party lines. It is extraordinary for people to speak out, or some of the things that you had brought forward had been known for some time, and I think there were a lot of people that I heard, both in conversation and online. I don't look at the comments that much, but just thought, regardless of a political affiliation, geez, we need more of this. People standing up for what's right, calling out the BS and refusing to be intimidated. I always think when someone is able to speak out in that way, which is extraordinary, that it empowers other people too, and hopefully, restores some faith in in what's going on there. So I want to.
Oh, very, very much so. And out of that time as speaker, there's the harassment, the text messages, Minister Harrison bringing, not at that time, but I called him out for bringing guns into the legislature, the racism, which we all know about.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that came forward.
And it was just more than I can bear. And out of that came a foundation I've set up through the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation. And it's a bursary right now going $1,000 to a student going to the U of R that's taking political science or related fields. Yeah. And we're expanding that to the U of S right now. Yeah. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping pretty busy speaking to groups and raising money for the foundation.
For the foundation, yeah. So this is, as you mentioned, a bursary, sort of something that you've taken on since the election. Tell me about the foundation, what you're trying to encourage through this bursary. What I often do think, like, how do we start to unravel some of this polarization, or how do we set us on a different path than we're on? Maybe talk to the bursary.
I like the name of the foundation. The founder of the Honorable Randy Week Strengthening of Parliamentary Democracy Legacy Fund. Isn't that nice? Yeah. But very much so. It's based on my experience. We have an agreement with the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation. And my daughter Lacey actually encouraged me. She says, in return, you should set up a foundation. So she had a connection to the foundation through Adam. And so I was starting to think about this foundation. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to get a charitable number, and I'm going to be writing tax receipts. Anyway, I sat down with them a number of times, and the good news is they look after everything but one thing, raising funds, right? And which is fair enough. But they do all that. It's, they're a solid group. They've gone from around $30 million in force to around like 130, 140,000 just in a relatively short time. So there's a lot of people out there doing some great stuff with that. And this bursary is goes to underrepresented students. So that's LGBTQ students, women, low income, newcomers, people of color, First Nations. Yeah. And so they're people that that definitely need a hand up to get into. Like I've always said, it's not that this is to get people to be an elected member. It's an honorable profession. Great to be elected, but to be active in all levels of government, federal, provincial, First Nations, municipal, and be a civil servant in whatever level. That's so important that we have those people represented in our society, because just the demographics of this province and country has changed. So that's really what we're trying to encourage.
Thank you for encouraging more representation. Certainly not just in the House, though, as you mentioned, all through the civil service, all through levels of government.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any advice before we go for maybe for someone who's going into the speaker's role about what to, how to center yourself, how to withstand the bumps, and what the importance of that role is?
Well, that's an interesting question, because of the challenges and the frictions that will ultimately come forward from your own party. I mean, there's going to be, but I think to instill in all members and the leadership of parties to have respect for the institution. Yeah. I mean, it's just there should be a limit on what parties expect or leaders expect from the speaker to basically break the rules or ignore that whole process. And I think we need to get back there.
Not everyone who tells you no when you're in government is, on the other side or anything like that. There's a reason that we have oversight and you don't have a carte blanche, even with a government with a huge majority, to do everything you want without being scrutinized. I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for this, and thank you to you and Cindy for hosting us in your beautiful home.
No, you're
I hope
very
we get to go
welcome.
see those horses for a second.
Yes, we'll go and take a look at the horses. Yeah,
Thanks,
well,
really appreciate it.
thank you
And
very much.
thank you for continuing on with the foundation.
Thank you.